I mean, Ed's career was going anyway, but I know I spoke to John Ollier, who's his agent, years ago, and he said it was the night he came and saw Ed record his live album on his own, saw 300 people in the Bedford that Ed put in there on his own, and went, this guy knows what he's doing. I better be his agent, right? And that kind of experience is really hard to recreate in a lot of venues where it doesn't sound that good and it's whatever. I mean, that's kind of the niche that we've built, but we don't say, where's your gig? It is a gig, right? So the audience come and they have a great time. But because it's that the artists generally work a little bit harder to make sure they got people coming because they want industry to see them and they want their friends and family to see them and stand there and they want to film it or they want to take the recording of it. And there's lots of reasons why doing it adds a little extra value to...
So we got another Wigwam, what we call this?
Wigwam Jam.
Wigwam Jam podcast. And we've got a really special edition
Very
today.
special one today, Chris.
We can pan over because I got a very good friend, Tony Moore.
Oh,
let's have it, Tony.
in the house.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much for coming, Tony.
I'm very happy to be here. You know, we've known each other for a little while now, and I love what you do for music. I love what you do to support artists, and I'm very honoured actually that you've invited me to do your podcast.
Well, I'm very glad you said that because I'm sure anyone watching for the first time would think we're a slightly aging boy band. But,
Apart from Dean.
He's
only 14.
But no, welcome, Tony. Welcome. Yeah, it's absolutely tremendous to have you here because, friends and stalwarts of the podcast know that we trying to promote this for up-and-coming artists and people who like to listen to emerging talent. But who better to have than yourself to explain how it all works? And I've talked enough already.
Yeah.
Surely you want to show off your gruff tones.
Well, yes, I've actually lost my voice, so I probably won't be speaking as much.
Well, at least you turned up today.
Which is, thank you, Dean. Which
he didn't make the last one.
No, sadly not.
So how did you lose your voice?
I've just got a cold. Yes, we've been in Manchester all weekend. Yeah, welcome, Tony, to our humble abode. Great to have you. And I think we'll kick off by just finding out a bit more for those that have been living under a rock and don't know about who you are and your history. And then we'll talk about what you've got coming up and our partnership.
Okay, well, I'll try and keep it brief. It's not easy because I've been doing this a really long time. And sometimes I don't think about how long I've been doing it, but I was born in Bristol, grew up in a very musical family. My dad was a classically trained tenor and pianist. He could play anything, and he did. He'd sit and play Rachmaninoff and Chopin and Mozart and sing all the great Italian ballads in Italian. He didn't speak Italian, but he could sing it perfectly.
Fantastic.
And my mum was a ballet dancer, so she'd be dancing. She'd dance into the room. You know, she'd make an entrance. Ta-da!
This must have been some influence.
It was wonderful. The weird thing is that I don't read music, and I went to piano lessons for a couple of months, and I couldn't get my head around it. I still can't read it, and luckily they didn't get frustrated with me. But what I did find I was doing was listening to my dad playing and trying to copy what he was doing by writing my own little musical pieces. My reasoning was very simple. It's the lazy man's way out, right? I can't do what you want me to do, so I'll do what I want to do, and then it can't be wrong. Right?
What did you prefer?
How do you mean prefer?
What was you tried piano lessons, but where did you migrate towards?
Oh no, I carried on playing the piano. I couldn't be doing with all the scales and all the sight reading. So I would compose little piece of music. So I was probably about 12 by now, 11, 12, composing little bits of pseudo classical music because I couldn't play what my dad played, but everything that he was playing was kind of seeping into me. And I remember one day I was reading Wind in the Willows, and there was a little poem in there. I think it was duck's tails, drake's tails, yellow feet a quiver, going down by the river. And I just put that to music because at 12 or 13, there's no life experience to sing about really. You're not really a great lyricist. I didn't know what to say, but I had a little poem, so I put it to music. That was the first song I wrote. And then I got the bug. I was writing lots more. At school, I formed a little band. I remember one day I was playing the piano and a friend had come over called Joanna Swan, and her brother Daniel was an amazing drummer, and she was beautiful, and she was a bit flirtatious with her, and so I said, I'll play you a song. So I played her and I sang her a song. She went, "Oh, you've got a really nice voice," and I went, "Oh, really?" Nobody had ever said that, and I thought, okay, I can do this because she said I had a nice voice. Sometimes in life, you only need one word of encouragement at the right moment, and that will push you forward.
I've heard
right?
that before. Yeah.
And conversely, sometimes people have grown up in families where they don't get their creative output and put them down a bit for it, and that puts them in a different direction, right? But that one little phrase of encouragement, "Oh, you've got a really nice voice," that made me think, I could do this.
Yeah, it's lovely. And stuck with you then. And that was it then.
Anyway, long story short, I played in lots of bands in Bristol. Even at a young age, when I was 15 and a half, nearly 16, I got a gig playing with a Welsh band who'd got a gig being the backup band for a soul singer called Al Matthews. Some people might remember him. He was an actor. He went on to be in Aliens, the second one. He was the drill sergeant with a cigar. You gotta get out there, He was a New York ex-Marine, big voice, right? But he'd had this song called Fool that was a massive hit in the UK in 75, 76. And he needed a band. And back in those days, this was the thing, right? You were an American act or out of town act, and you come and you just pick up a cheap band and you do the tour around. And so we did that. And I did it for about a month and a half, stayed in little hotels, played to sold out shows, signed some autographs. People loved it. I found out later you could get paid for that as well. I think they realized I was a bit young and green. And they went, well, it'd be a good experience for you. Yeah. But it was great. Then I thought I need to move to London. I was 17 now, because that's the streets are paved with gold, as they say. So I answered an advert in the Melody Maker, which the younger generation won't understand this, but the Melody Maker was like the internet in written format, right? So all the information in the music industry, everything you needed to know, articles, reviews, interviews, and then the want ads, right? Yeah. So personnel, equipment for sale, romantic liaison, whatever, it was all there. And in the Musicians Wanted, there was a big box advert, and it said Iron Maiden rock band, 6 drummer and keyboard synth player, no idiots, right? They weren't famous, so I didn't know.
No, but nevertheless, let's just stop there a second. We're talking Iron Maiden. Yes. So to me, this is... it doesn't get much bigger and better than that. So you answered an advert in Melody Maker for Iron Maiden.
Yes. And I think they were very clever because they always had an eye to the marketing, right? When I joined them, they had that logo, right? That's been there almost since day one. The idea of a strong brand, so instead of just putting a little advert saying looking for a keyboard player, it's a big box advert with their name in it because it's in the paper, right? Even if you don't want to join a band, you see the name, right? It's putting it out there. It's very clever, right? Draws your eye. So, yes, I phoned them up. I think I spoke to Dennis Wilcock, who was the singer in the band at the time, and arranged an audition. So I stuck my gear
as a
keyboard player.
Keyboard.
Yes, and I don't play drums, but I did have a synth, right? In fact, when I did the audition, I had a Korg micro synth, which was an awful little preset synth, and a Wurlitzer piano. I mean, the two least rock and roll not rock and roll. Piano's very rock and roll, but heavy metal. But I didn't even know what the music was. Right? It was just a band.
So was Iron Maiden back then going a bit more? I don't know, heavy prog, that sort of thing.
So Steve Harris, who's that has been the driving force of Iron Maiden since day one. He always loved things like Genesis and Todd Rundgren and Pink Floyd and all that. But after I joined the band, we used to sit and talk for hours and play records and talk about that. I'll come to that in a second. So I think, I can't remember who said this or whether it might have been in another advert or they might have said it, but there was a big record at the time called Bells of Berlin by a band called Lone Star, which I think had John Wetton on the bass. Anyway, check the record out. It's a fantastic record. It's really long, super catchy, but it's got that rhythm, it's that kind of shuffly thing that's very, a lot of the Maiden kind of stuff, and that metal stuff is that shuffle thing. So, and in this Bells of Berlin, there's lots of synth, right? I think the idea was, okay, let's get a keyboard in and add those flavors to Maiden, right? So I put a little HH combo, my Wurlitzer, my synth, bag of cables in the back of my Austin 1100. my girlfriend at the time, Sally, and we drove up to London. We went, that was another story, right? Trying to get through London when you've never been to London before properly.
Yeah, not easy.
With an A to Z and going through the city of London. It's like these streets. I got lost once and I had to pay a cab driver to get me out so I could follow him. But went to this rehearsal studio, which was called Scarf, behind Mile End Station. And there was a big old truck outside that they had their gear in, and a guy called Vic Vella, who used to drive the truck, and he was like a mate of the band. And Dave Lights had some spotlights on the floor and some little rocker switches. He was turning them on and off to give a bit of mood. And I walk into this rehearsal room, which is much smaller than the room we're in now. But I'd never been in a rehearsal room. Right? We'd only ever rehearsed in my mum's basement or my friend's garage.
So you're going from not much exposure or experience to straight in there with the likes of Iron Maiden in their early days.
It was like, this is standard in London, right? The rehearsal room, where a ton of amps and Steve's bass rig, I think it was a big Ampeg, the 8x10, and then it was massive, right? And there was like a hum in the room from all the amps that were on. And if you imagine that moment in Back to the Future when Marty plugs the guitar in and plays that first chord, it was almost a bit like that when the band started, right? Because it was so loud.
Yeah.
But so exciting. And we just played for, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. And I just tried to find a space to be the keyboard player in this band. And then we stopped and they went outside and had a little chat, and they came back and they went, all right, the gig's yours if you want it. And I went, yeah, all right. I love it.
So, as a fan of Iron Maiden, it's not known very well for its keyboards. So how long did this gig last?
Oh, it was it was one gig actually. It was 6-8 months, something like that. It was my reason to move to London. And like I said, when I first moved to London, I stayed with Steve and his nan in Steel Road in Leytonstone, because I had nowhere to stay and I didn't know anyone else. And it was those days in the back room in his nan's house with his big record collection, sitting there talking about how much we love Genesis and how we will have a stage show like them one day, this big light system, and that we're going to be the cutting edge of new British rock, right? And it's like, because we're coming out of the punk thing, right? So punk has punctured, right, the big rock balloon, and it's deflated, and all the big dinosaurs have kind of withdrawn inside their caves a bit to rethink what they're going to do, and the landscape's changed. So, the Sex Pistols and The Damned and 999 and all these British bands, along with the American bands, the Ramones and stuff, kind of scaring everybody by doing it themselves and being quite real, right? It's the real deal. Some of that, I think, bled into the early Maiden, certainly with the speed that things were played.
Is this what the precursor to New Wobham and stuff?
Yeah, because there wasn't a phrase like that, right? Because nobody knew what was going on.
Do you know New Wobham, Nathan?
No, I don't.
Big Prince fan that you are.
I don't actually.
It sounds like a small area just outside town, doesn't it? I live in New Wobham, actually. It's
the new wave of British heavy metal.
Okay, well, I probably should
late
know.
70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
That's when I started listening.
Yeah.
When all of us 9-year-olds used to do headbanging in the disco to stuff like that. It's absolutely fantastic.
So in the time that I was in the band, pretty much all of the first album was in the set. And Steve was writing stuff for the second album, including Phantom of the Opera. I remember sitting with him and he's trying to play it to me, and because it's a brilliant piece of music, but it's the first time I hear it's quite complicated to work out kind of where the one is. Well, where do I come in, right? It was, but it was just really exciting times because it wasn't glamorous, but everyone was very serious. It was very pro. Right, it was a very professional.
There was ambition in there, obviously.
Absolutely, right, and that was partly why I got so excited about it all. It was a bit hard with the Wurlitzer. I bought another synth. I got an ARP Axe, which was a nicer synth. And I got a job at Debenhams, working in Oxford Street, selling cameras and hi-fi. And I got a little room share in Kilburn, in the same street that Terry Wapham, the guitarist, lived in. He didn't drive. So we used to drive to rehearsals 3 times a week, and he'd be regaling me with stories of London music industry and, and other musicians. And he'd say things like, he's a really Larry player. And I go, oh. What's that mean? I quite like it.
Coming from the West Country.
Larry. I don't know what Larry means, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
And we really just talk about all the things that we could do. And it all led eventually to one gig at the Bridge House in Canning Town, because there'd been a couple of variations of Iron Maiden up to that point, and then they'd taken a step back to kind of reconfigure everything, including keyboard player. So a lot of people came to see what it was all about, right? What's new? And it wasn't the greatest gig. It was very busy, but it didn't feel like the greatest gig in the world. There were a lot of things went wrong. But at the end of it, it kind of seemed to me not the right band for keyboards. For me, I was finding it hard to work out, right? And it was a very amicable thing. I mean, I think it was Dennis and Steve. I just called them up and said, listen, it's not working for me. I think this isn't the right thing. And they were, here's the thing about Steve, as I've observed, he's like a steamroller in one direction. So if you're in the band, great. If you're not in the band, great. I'm just going.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not like, no, it's like if you're not part of the band, then you're doing something else, but we're carrying on doing the thing, right? And there have been 24 different members of Iron Maiden over the years. We're a big
counting,
family.
I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in the early days, lots of people, came and went for whatever reasons. But I think there was a moment after I left. I know Dennis and Terry left and formed a band called V1, which really just left, and the drummer, which was Thundersticks. He went and joined
Samson,
right? When Bruce was still in the band.
Yeah, exactly. That's where he was, right?
So there's the irony of he joins the band and then Bruce leaves the band to join Iron Maiden.
Exactly,
And then, but the Paul Di'Anno, Adrian, Dave, Steve, and what's his name? Clive Burr. That was the format. Suddenly, same songs. But
that's where it clicked.
That energy, yes, that personnel, that magic there, got the deal, got the management, and then they worked harder than any band I've ever seen since.
And they had the best spandex.
Well, they had a lot of spandex, it's true.
So that's a fantastic story.
Yeah,
I mean, look what Iron Maiden have become.
Fascinating.
It's
It's only got you to 1978, though. So
oh, good God,
you're gonna have to split this into 3.
Yeah. So then
Christmas
thereafter, leading up to, I guess, Cutting Crew days.
Okay, so that's 10 years later.
Yeah.
So I left in 1978, and I answered another advert in the Melody Maker.
So before you go into that, I just want to. It's a good segue, right? So you might have heard of a sort of music tech platform. That's what I call it. Anyway, called Jamma.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. Yes, let's get that in. Yes.
Now, the reason I bring this up
I know
is because not many people know this, but Jamma is a bit like Melody Maker, and Nathan's going to explain why in his gruff tones.
Well, I think they speak the jobs through the jobs board. And we were discussing this on the train the other day.
Yeah, we were.
So, yeah, it's no, thanks for the link, Chris.
No, it's
much appreciated.
segue.
Yeah, so Jamma has a jobs board, which is essentially like, in fact, it was someone that you were talking to that compared it to Melody Maker in terms of that digital jobs board is basically that jobs board is a digital version of the physical back pages of Melody Maker back in the day. So,
Which is a great idea, Nathan, because there isn't, to my knowledge, that kind of format. There's agencies and there's, and Facebook will have groups, but it's all a bit difficult to navigate and find,
100%,
right?
yeah.
So to kind of put everything in one place as a notice board for buying, selling, need a musician, need a singer, who's co-writing, where's the studio, all that kind of stuff. That's a great resource.
Thank you. And obviously, you can pay through it and discounts with partners.
So jammamusic.com is the digital melody maker.
Yes. Cheers. Thanks
So
for that.
back to
Well, I'm off.
so back to the early 80s.
Yeah, so I answer another advert. Well, I joined a band that Brian James has formed. He was the original guitarist in The Damned. He wrote Neat, Neat, Neat and New Rose, which were the two first punk singles that came out ahead of the Pistols, right? So, and they were a lot more... I mean, the Sex Pistols are amazing, right? If you listen to the records now, they're better now than they were then almost. Incredible productions, great rock band productions. And, I have to be honest, when we were, young musicians, we all went, Johnny Rotten, oh, what a terrible singer. Actually, he's a brilliant singer. He was never out of tune. Right? He had attitude. We just didn't like the attitude.
Just a different tune to everyone else.
Well, no, he's in tune with the record. I mean, he bends
when
the
you're
notes.
looking back now, it was actually the right tune.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like it's out of tune. When you hear somebody out of tune, you can't listen to it.
Yeah.
It's just that there was a lot of, and we don't care, right? He was like, but it was an attitude. But it wasn't an out of tune thing, right? So I can look back fondly at those records and go, wow, these are amazing records. But the Damned records were a lot less beautifully produced, should we say. They were a lot more about the energy. It was like, neat, 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 right? It was that whole punk energy. But Brian, at that point, had decided he wanted to do something a bit more musical, wanted a keyboard player. So this band had Alan Powell, who had been the drummer in Hawkwind, a guy, obviously Brian, myself, and then Andy, a guy called Andy on the bass, who'd had a band called Warsaw Pact. And we had management, right? And I was getting £25 a week retainer. And I thought I'd jumped to the right ship for me, because one of our managers was Alan Edwards, who now has the biggest PR company in the country, looks after the Who and looked after David Bowie. And at the time was looking after Blondie and all the punk stuff. And Blondie had him on a retainer that allowed him to pay for his office in Covent Garden when it was a deserted, boarded up old flower and fruit market and dangerous to wander around at night. That retainer kept him going. He just kept their name in the press every now and then. And a guy called Ian Grant, who had a company called Albion, and they managed the Stranglers and Hazel O'Connor and all this stuff. But we felt like we were in the heart of the cutting edge of, cool bands, right? We were going to the opening of special events and getting photographs. And it was all in Sounds and Melody Maker and New Musical Express. And we still had a bit of a punk attitude, so much so that we picked up a tour opening for Black Sabbath. Wow. This was the last one before Ozzy left in 78. Yeah. And we picked it up halfway through because the opening band had left the tour and gone back to America. Partly, I think, because they were doing too good on the tour. Yeah, and partly because their career was blowing up in America. And I think they had a cover of a Kinks song, You Really Got Me, Van Halen.
Oh, no way.
Right. So
yeah, they didn't do badly, did they?
No, they did well, didn't they? But not unfortunately, because none of it's unfortunate. It's all an amazing experience. But interestingly enough, for the people who bought a ticket when Van Halen were on the tour, they got us. And the first night of the show was Birmingham Odeon, which was the home audience for Black Sabbath. And we got on that stage, and they were trying to bottle us off the stage. I've never faced that before. They were running down, going, off. And I was going, oh my God.
Yes. It's like when Prince opened for the Stones. Same kind
isn't that right? The wrong artist at the wrong moment in time. Yeah. And audiences just don't get it, right? Yeah. Nowadays, you can go and see Metallica and Green Day on the same bill. Nobody goes, oh, they're punk, right?
Yeah.
But back then, it was very divisive. It taught me a lot. Taught me how to duck. I stayed with that band for about a year. And then I don't know why, really, it fizzled out. It was a bit like the Libertines. It had lots of press, and it was really, everyone was talking about it, but it didn't translate into commercial success. We did a John Peel session, though. That was amazing. And he said nice things about us on the radio.
Something you said bedside table, the curtains are closed, the cat's in a cradle. Who would have thought that a boy like me could come to this? Oh, I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been something you said. I just died in your arms tonight. Oh, I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been some kind of kiss. I should have walked away. I should have walked away. Is there any just cause for feeling like this? On the surface, I'm a name on a list. I try to be discreet, but then blow it again. I've lost and found, it's my final mistake. She's loving by proxy, no give and all take. 'Cause I've been thrilled to fantasy one too many times. Oh, I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been something you said. I just died in your arms tonight. Oh, I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been some kind of kiss. I should have walked away. I should have walked away. It was a long, hot night. She made it easy. She made it feel right. But now it's over. The moment is gone. I follow my hands with my head. I know I was wrong. I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been something you said. I just died in your arms.
So a little Dickie Bird told me,
Yeah.
I think this is one of the early days when we knew each other. Little Dickie Bird told me that Tony was in Cutting Crew.
Yes.
Well, I haven't got there yet.
He hasn't
I
got
know,
there
But
yet.
I'll get there quickly because I know this podcast isn't infinite.
We're running out of tape.
Yes, I got to tell you a quick joke.
Go on.
Go on then.
Quick joke. It doesn't. This nobody get this anymore. But there was apparently it's not a joke. It's apparently a true story. But there was this band back in the early 80s, or maybe the 70s, early 80s. But they're in a studio, 24-track studio, right? And their manager, who knows nothing about their business, he's a bit of he's kind of funding it. He's probably a bit of a gangster, and he's got a bit of chutzpah, and he thinks he's going to take the band places, right? Apparently, he comes in, and the band are all a bit dejected, and go, oh, well. And he goes, well, "What's the matter, kids?" And they go, "Well, we needed to do some more guitar solos. There's no more tracks left, right? It's a 24-track tape."
Yeah.
So he goes over to the engineer and goes, "Yeah, mate, look, it's £100. Go and get him another couple of tracks," because he has no idea that it's on the tape, right? He thinks money can buy them some more tracks. Of course they can, though. Oh, just go and get another couple of hard drives, right?
Yeah, not back in the day.
Now the bass player in England Stroke Romance was Colin Farley, and when we left, we formed a little duo to do synth pop stuff, which didn't do much, but we've been mates for years, right? And one day he calls me up. And he says, "I've joined this band and we need a keyboard player." I went, "All right." And the band was Cutting Crew. So that was my in to Cutting Crew, right? I knew nothing about the band, but he was the bass player in the band. And so I joined the band. And by the beginning, the first big European tour we did at the beginning of 1987, Died in Your Arms is doing well in Europe.
That was a huge hit.
Yes. But here's the weird thing. We were signed to Siren Records, which was a division of Virgin in the UK and Europe. And Virgin America launched in 87. And there was a big discussion about what will be the first single they put out, right? Because you've now got the entire record label poised to work one record.
Yeah, they want it to be a big hit
And
to
it's gotta
start
be a
off
hit,
with.
right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you this is true, but I heard the story that Pete Wiley's Story of the Blues
Yeah.
was a contender to be the first, but then it was Died in Your Arms. And we're in the middle of this European tour, and we get this message. It's flying up the American charts. You got to go to America. And it's like, wow, okay, right. I can't remember where we were, in the middle of Germany somewhere. So we cut the European tour short, came back, regrouped, got everything together, and flew out probably April-ish, sometime, May-ish, to start the first American tour, opening for the Bangles.
Yeah, wow.
Right?
Sorry.
Right at their
Hang
height.
on, what about Manning?
I was sorry, I was a teenager when the Bangles were out.
you're having a Hoff moment.
Crossed my legs, no, I'm afraid. Yeah.
You're having a Susanna moment.
Give him that cushion.
Oh, absolutely. I follow her on Instagram now.
A side-eye. She's great, isn't she? She's still doing little cool. Every now and then she does the side-eye thing now, compared with the side-eye thing then.
No messing.
Great band.
It's a link from there to Prince.
He wrote Manic Monday.
Yes.
He did.
Which
Oh, it's all falling together.
Yeah,
It
it
really
is.
is.
Perfect storm brewing.
we talking of a storm, we arrived in Atlanta to fly to New Orleans, where the first date was. Electric thunderstorms. We were the last flight out. When we got to New Orleans, we were playing the next day at the zoo. There's a big because they do that in America. All the theme
An
parks,
actual zoo, yeah.
they have.
I remember Sparks at some theme park, some roller coaster.
Yes, but they also have all the big staging there, right? So it's a thing kids can go in the afternoon and then they can go to the gig in the evening. So
like the puppet show with Spinal Tap.
exactly, yeah. Well, it should have been Spinal Tap first, obviously, but that was, of course, the day the world heard Jazz Odyssey. What
exactly.
What a wonderful day to remember that was. So we did our bit, and then the heavens opened. They had to cancel the gig. So the Bangles didn't even play the first night of the tour that we joined them with. But then we went on, did some amazing shows for them.
So how big did the track become in the US?
Eventually, it was the fast at the time. It was the fastest debuting #1 in America.
So no mean
And-
feat,
Just
Tone.
slip that one
Just
in,
throw it
Tone,
in there,
yeah.
Tone, yeah.
And then it went on to be #1 in 15 different countries.
Wow.
Whoa-wee.
So
Must be a mind-blowing time.
It was
Just
like-
a whirlwind.
it was amazing, and I loved every second of it because I really lived in the moment. So,
Yeah.
I'd always get up early. In fact, we did like the first half of the Bangles tour, and then we went to Japan. We went to Hong Kong and Japan and did promo and shows there. And when we were in Hong Kong, we all bought video cameras because that whole kind of Super 8s format had really just arrived, and it was small enough that you could take it anywhere,
yeah.
right? So I've got a ton of video,
wow.
a ton of video of those days. Lots of it's just random stuff of me walking down the streets, talking to people, pretending that I'm a roving reporter, just, and it was both innocent and very serious at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when you've got a #1 record, everybody loves you, obviously, and everyone gives you whatever you want and makes it comfortable in your limos. But it was also so not unexpected, but
you can't
I hadn't
predict these
experienced it
things, can
before,
you?
right? Yeah. And I was just having the time of my
Of course,
life.
and you got to enjoy it while you can, haven't you?
We did. So the two biggest highlights for me, one was the Johnny Carson show.
Wow.
We did that on his birthday. Remember, no internet. So the estimated audience was 80 million watching the show live. And everything was live, right? I was in the studio the night before. They rented keyboards for me because we couldn't get my keyboards there from the tour, right? It was too complicated. We can all jump on a plane and fly there quickly, but to bring the stuff off the tour was too complicated. So I rented keyboards and was programming them the night before to get all the sounds. We were going to do two songs, Died in Your Arms and then Been in Love Before, which was going to be the next single.
Next one, yeah.
And I remember we had everything set up. We're behind the curtains. We're going to come out of the interval and do the two songs. And then 30 seconds before the curtains come, some guy comes in with headphones and the clipboard. He says, "We're running late, cut one song." Right? So, what do we cut? So we made the decision, Died in Your Arms has already been a hit.
Yeah.
Let's play the new one. But that was going to be the second song. So all my keyboards are programmed for Died in Your Arms. So now I'm...
Yeah.
Right, because there was going to be like
Panic
a minute or so,
stations, basically.
you know, where Johnny would probably say something to Nick and say, so how are you enjoying the success, Nick? Oh, it's great. Well, let's hear your second song, right? So, and the curtains are going back, just in time. I just reposted a bit of video of it on my Facebook. It's in black and white, which makes it look very exciting. But because my cousins recorded it live off the TV, and when I copied the VHS, the American VHS, because of the difference between NTSC and PAL, the different video formats, it came out as black and white.
Yeah.
But it looks kind of cool. Anyway, you can see it. We're all a bit like, you know, deer in headlights. Going, okay.
I'll check. We'll have to
There's
check
the
that
wrong
out.
mixes in the
fair
monitors.
play. I mean,
right?
you don't need that when you've got to have 80 million watching you and change it at the last minute.
But you got to do it, right? That's the nature of the game.
Sink or swim, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other amazing thing we did, we played in Taipei, and so Taiwan at the time had just started relaxing its cultural revolutionary boundary. Well, boundary is the wrong words, but restrictions. So when Chiang Kai-shek marched out of China and went to Taiwan, they destroyed all culture. No one was allowed to sing, dance, paint, do anything, right? It was the hardcore communist regime. So they just destroyed it. They destroyed the statues. And we arrived about a month or two after, we were the second Western band to play there after Gloria Estefan, who was the first Western band that they allowed people to come to a concert to. But after that, they relaxed the regulation that you couldn't dance. So this was the first time kids could stand up and dance.
Wow.
And it blew our minds that to be in a place where we were the first band that an audience danced to.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And there's bits of clips of that somewhere on YouTube as well. That was about 60,000 people in this basketball arena. And there was not a violent riot, but a bit of a riot for people just trying to get in because they don't want to be left out of this thing. These moments were quite life-changing.
Yeah, I bet.
When I realized that we were kind of part of the cultural history of change in a country, in both senses, actually, with the Johnny Carson show, because that was the peak of the cultural, the culture of America at the time. That show was so important. So that was Cutting Crew. And then we came, at the end of the tour, the second single wasn't really being played. They kept playing the first one, right? Don't know. So we came back to the UK to make another album. And that went on for about a year. And for various reasons, I felt it was time to move on. So I left the band at that point. But it was a magical time.
It sounds phenomenal. Doesn't it? We can't,
Some
it's easy
incredible
for us.
stories tonight. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the people that you've met along the way. And so we know you from the fact that you are the curator at the world famous The Bedford in Balham in London. How did you get into that?
Well, so that journey starts about 6 years earlier. And really, I have to kind of take the end of the Cutting Crew story into that a little bit. So it's now about 1989. I formed a band called Big Parade. I thought it was going to be easy. Right, I've been in a band with the number one. We're going to get a deal. It's going to be easy. No, it wasn't easy at all. None of that happened. We gigged for about two years solidly. We wrote and recorded. And that kind of faded out, unfortunately. And then I met a girl called Marie-Claire Dubaldo, who was an Argentine singer-songwriter, to write with her because she had a development deal. And that worked for about a year or two until she got a full-blown deal with Polydor in America, at which time she and I were a bit of an item and writing together. And so she made this album. I wrote 3 or 4 songs with her on the album. She wrote a lot with Rick Knowles and Billy Steinberg. She wrote with a lot of different people, and she had one monster hit off of this album. There was lots of problems with the record label. No time to go into it all really, but she had one monster hit in Europe. So in Italy, if you speak to anyone who remembers the early 90s, and you tell them The Rhythm Is Magic by Marie-Claire Dubaldo, they go, "Oh my God, that song is like..." It was like the soundtrack of '94. It was the biggest hit there. It was also pretty big in Spain, in Japan, in Russia, in Latin America, but never released in the UK or America. So eventually the record label dropped her. It was all a bit messy. And it's now about 1996. And I'm thinking to myself, I've done all of this stuff. and I'm a songwriter at heart, and there's nowhere for me to play my song. I just want to sit down, sit at the keyboard, sit at the acoustic, and play songs to people that want to listen. And at the same time, one of my best friends who worked for BMI, the American version of PRS, the collection agency for royalties, was telling me about this place called the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, where everyone venerated
very famous,
singer-songwriters, right? So in my imagination, it was like this gorgeous place with red velvet banquette seating and a grand piano, great spotlights. And so I thought, I'm going to do something like that. So I went through a couple of locations for a month or two, but found this location under a pub in Marylebone. And I called the club the Kashmir Club because, first of all, I liked the sound of the word Kashmir, partly because it was a Led Zeppelin track, and I love that track.
Yeah, it's a fantastic track.
And Kashmir, I believe in its original language, means beautiful valley, I think. But then I put a K on the club, so because I've read this thing somewhere where the guy who invented Kodak, or who founded Kodak, created that word. It's a created word, right? And he chose 2 Ks because it's a very strong consonant sound. It looks strong. It sounds Kodak. So I went Kashmir Club with 2 Ks. And of course, it did stand out because people kept spelling it with a C. And I went, no, it's a K, right? But the idea was me and Mary Claire and our mates, who were great, right? We could just sing songs. It was free entry. I blagged all the gear, the PA and the mics and everything from friends in the industry because I wanted it to sound great. And I booked the acts to start with because they were my mates. And I hosted the show because I like hosted shows. I like everyone to know what's going on. And within 2 or 3 months, it was a massive success. We were doing 2 nights a week, started at 1. And we ran for 6 years, got up to 6 nights a week at the end of 6 years. I had debut performances from people like Damien Rice.
Wow.
Who made us cry. He was so good. We're going, it's just emotionally amazing when he was singing with Lisa. We had The Feeling when they weren't called The Feeling. They had a female singer then. We had Imogen Heap. Sheryl Crow came down one night to see an act that was playing and said, can I play here? And we gave her a gig that Saturday, unannounced. I said, listen, here's the deal. You have to sound check when people are coming in because we can't pay you.
Was this when she was known? Or was
yes. Yeah. Oh, she was a big star. Yeah, this is
She was enormous.
That's peak.
So I
Peak
said to her, we can't pay you, obviously, because it's free entry and we haven't got any money. And even if we did, we can't afford you. You'll have to sound check when people are coming in. We can't tell anyone you're playing, obviously, but we do ask all the artists to invite some friends. That's the deal. She went, we can do that. So she came in, she set up with her band, who were all English guys, good mates of mine, did her sound check. And in fact, I got an email the next day from this guy. He said, I turned up a bit later. And when I got to my table, my friends were already there. I said, have I missed anything? And they went, no, it hasn't started yet. It's just been the sound checks. And he said, oh, what was it? And they went, well, it's this girl. She's like an Alanis Morissette lookalike doing Sheryl Crow covers. But that was before I'd announced that it was Sheryl Crow. People went, because why would you think it was Sheryl Crow?
Yeah,
in this tiny little basement. And Nathan, that's where we went. I showed you.
Yeah, where we had lunch,
It was like, I was crying. I was standing at the side of the stage going, this is Sheryl Crow playing in my little club because she wants to be here because the vibe is a thing and she's happy to do all of that. And she brought some friends, right? She brought Emmylou Harris. Emmylou Harris is road manager. She brought Chrissy Hind.
Wow, yeah.
And
Lance Armstrong?
No, it was before that actually. Chrissy Hind and somebody else. Who was it? Maybe it was Emmylou. I think it was Emmylou Harris. Anyway, it's like...
No, it's phenomenal.
They're down at the table having a pizza with everybody else, right?
Success, basically, the Kashmir Club.
Yes, but it closed, and because the guy that owned the building wanted to renovate it, so I had nowhere to do the gig, and to be honest, I didn't plan to run a venue for 6 years and book acts. Much as I loved it, my plan was still to write songs and be an artist.
Yeah, it happened by accident.
Yeah.
But because I when you find that you can do something really well, even if it's not what you thought you wanted to do, there's a great draw to continue doing it because you can see the results of your work, right? And this is the really satisfying things. you can make a movie and spend months making a movie, and it might be a hit and it might not be. But with this, every night
It's a success.
was
So,
working,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It was like instant gratification,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
So how did that then lead into what is now obviously the Bedford?
yeah, well, when it closed, I got this text message from a guy called Chris Scully, who owned the Bedford at the time, saying he said, "I heard about the club closing. I really like what you did. I've got a great venue. Would you come and see it and see if you can help us? It's not working. We need some help." So I went down and I saw the place and I said, "I'll come and help you for 6 months." And that was in 2003. That's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's most people's entire career, right?
Yeah.
You normally get a gold watch at the end of that, don't you? Or gold capo or something.
So the Bedford needs no introduction. I mean, just rattle off some of the people that you've.
Well, within the first
Had-
6 months of me taking over running it, I had 17-year-old Paolo Nutini arrive from Glasgow, who played with us for about a year before his deals really kicked in. And he was already an amazing singer, but he had a charisma that
Oh,
was
yes.
just unbelievable. And the staff, right, would all just kind of try and work in the theatre at the same time because and they're all like watching him going.
So everyone
he's
knew
great.
immediately.
You
with him.
know it. You
Yeah.
knew it, right? He was so good, and he was cheeky and funny and
Yeah, he's
charming, but he had that voice. James Morrison, James Bay, Katie Tunstall.
You throw in some pretty big names in here. So
Yeah, I did-
Blase as well.
But none of them were big, right? They
no,
were just
it's-
like us.
yeah,
Everyone's just a human being, right? Everyone's just-
100%.
But because of my a lot of the crossover from the Kashmir Club, right, that came with me. But because I made it a place with an amazing sound and a great stage, and it took us a little while to get there, has to be said, because they were doing the shows in the upstairs room with a little PA, and I went, we've got to get a better PM. We've got to do the shows downstairs and make it what it really is now. But yeah, I mean, 20 years. We used to program about 20 acts a week, and if you add that by 2, 5, 10, that's like 1,000 acts a year.
20,000, yeah.
Yeah, so that's more or less 20,000
not bad, is
performances.
it?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of live music.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which one stands out?
Um,
Apart from the Radio Wigwam Awards, clearly.
of course. Well,
I was
that,
gonna
that was
I was
the
going to link
highlight
into
of
that
our
in a
year.
second.
It's really hard because I love everyone, right? I book everyone because I really love their music, and they're all at different places in their career. There was we had Kiki D there one night, and I've loved Kiki D since I was a kid, and she came and did one of our charity nights. She was amazing. She's just such an incredible performer. It's a guy called Antonio Forcioni, who's an instrumentalist guitarist, but next level genius of guitar, between jazz, kind of world music, and the tapping stuff. He was doing things that nobody had ever seen anyone do before, and we were the only place that he would ever play for nothing, because even at that point in his career, he could sell out Ronnie Scott's, or he could sell out, but he'd come and play because he'd like the vibe, and we'd all sit there and go, oh my god,
That must be absolutely fabulous when you know you've created that sort of venue that people just want to play at. And
Yeah.
it's the same for the artists that come from Jamma and
Yes,
from Wigwam that we're lucky enough to get there.
Well, you're doing a similar thing through different media forms to help support emerging artists. I mean, one of the reasons I keep doing it is because I know that I'm making a difference for a lot of people by giving them a platform in a way that they wouldn't normally get it. And it's not just the platform itself. I think there are some artists who ask to play, and then when we explain how it works, they go, "Oh, it's not for me." Like, we usually do 2 songs in each half, and there's 5 acts. They go, "I want to do a whole set," and they don't work with us, and it's fine, right? It's a way of working. But by having 5 acts playing twice, everyone's audience stays, and make it a hosted show glues it together. And 2 songs is all you need to know if you like an act or not. So if it's not your cup of tea, you can go, "Oh, it's just 2 songs,"
Yeah.
and then another act comes along.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad.
And
it's
when they
just not
come
your
on
cup of
again,
tea.
you're going to have a pint.
But well, not even that. It's only 2 songs, right?
Yeah.
But when it's an act you like, you go, "Oh, I can't wait for the next 2 songs," right?
Yeah.
If you can't win an audience over in 2 songs or 4 songs, it doesn't matter if you play for an hour and a half.
exactly,
right?
100%.
So it's a little bit of a taster.
It keeps it really fresh as well.
Yeah.
Keeps the evening fresh,
and it keeps the energy high.
Yeah, it's a great way of doing it.
It's a community thing. The amount of artists that have become friends and sung on each other's tracks or done tours together or recorded with each other, it's because they met there, right? Is uncountable because it's been 20 years of doing that.
Brilliant.
So, but you're doing a similar thing in a different way. You know, you've got a radio station where you've got a reach of people that will trust your judgment, like what you do, and can be listening all around the world. And with Jamma, you're doing the same thing, creating opportunities all over the place. I'm functioning really in one or two venues between the Bedford and the Camden Club.
So exactly, you just mentioned it. I was going to segue into the Camden Club. So that's your latest venue.
Yeah, so Andrew Hart, who owns it, owns the property, owns the lease on the property. I got contacted about 18 months ago to go and meet him because he was looking for someone to put on a night of music. And I walked into the venue and there was nothing in there. It was just the remains of what had been Belgo's, the restaurant. And there was actually a wall down the middle because they had two kind of dining areas. And I'm so busy that I don't really have time to take anything else on. But there's a vibe in that room. It's like a feng shui thing, right? I instantly felt this will be an amazing space for music. So I said, I will come on board, but only if you give me the job to do everything. Let me do everything, as in work out where the stage should be,
lighting, sound,
and curating all the music and guiding the vibe of it, and we'll get it up to speed. And to his credit, Andrew went, okay. So we put in this stage, and it's a big stage, right? Because that's the point. If you have a 6.5 meters by 3.5 meters deep, if you have a big stage, you can do anything, right? You could have a secret Coldplay gig, right? Or you could have a 10-piece jazz band or whatever, right? If you've only got a tiny little stage, you will be limited in what you can do on it, right? So this felt like it was the ideal size for the room. But the builder who was building this stage to my dimensions he said, this is half the bloody room. And I went, yes, but it's actually the whole reason that people will come. Because the artist will love it and the audience will feel right. It will be right.
Really
It's still intimate.
personal,
It's still very intimate. And it's still a decent capacity. 180, is it?
Yes, it's about 180 standing, and you can do it cabaret style or standing. We put a great PA in, a great stage, great lights, all nice. It's a green room with a loo and everything. It's a lot of it's still work in progress. To look at it, right? There's lots of things to tart up, but the function of it and the space of it and the sound of it is wonderful. The first 6 months were hard work, really hard work, because no one knew who we were. There wasn't a big marketing budget. But from about a year ago, everything started to click as people would come and go, I love this space. Can I do a night here, right? And Camden is a much easier sell than Balham, where the Bedford is, for people to do their own nights, because everyone can get to Camden easily. Actually, everyone can get to Balham easily. They just psychologically think, south of the river.
Yeah,
That's how it
totally.
works.
Yeah.
That was my biggest challenge at the Bedford.
Yeah.
Not the talent, not the experience, just getting people to come there in the first place. So now there's a lot of people who begrudgingly go south of the river but have a great time when they're there.
Yeah.
No, and both venues are
We love
absolutely
them both.
fantastic.
We love them both. And the next Jamma Wigwam showcase
That's
is
right.
at the Camden Club on November 30th.
That's right.
Tickets
we can't
are-
wait. We got 4 great acts going to be at the Camden Club
free.
on the 30th of November.
30th of November. Free tickets available.
Free.
Check
Yeah.
socials.
Well, the last show you
Come
did
along.
at the Bedford was such a great success.
Yeah, that was.
Thank you,
The-
Tony.
Cheers.
We enjoyed it.
And you really did an amazing job. And I think it's quite interesting because you're creating these kind of themed, branded. Again, I don't want to use the word showcase, highlight events that are a gig in themselves, but it's an opportunity to put artists together, for them to share their audience, but also for your wider reach to be able to come and see what you've been playing, what you've been talking about, who you've been promoting, and see them live, right?
We're trying to do our bit to get some, people who maybe wouldn't get the exposure of some
Yeah.
other one. They're coming from all over the place. We had a band from Australia last
That
time.
was it. Holiday.
Yeah, and we got
band.
people coming from Liverpool and
Fantastic.
some closer to home, but all of them can't wait to play these fantastic venues because they're really choice and the sound is great, the lights are great. We can't wait.
We
Yes.
loved it. We loved it.
Well,
Right.
I have no doubt that November the 30th at the Camden Club will be equally as amazing as the Bedford one, and that was a full night, right? You,
It was.
you rammed
yeah.
the place.
Oh, it was great.
Great stuff.
So the eagle-eyed amongst us will have noticed that you've got something on your cap, Tony.
Yes.
So tell us what's Awake.
Okay, so now we move into contemporary Tony territory. The historical stuff we'll put to one side now. In 2021, I basically made an album. And I did it because it was the second lockdown period. And I was working in the shed in my mum's garden where I'd been streaming shows through the lockdowns and looking after my mum. And I have all my gear in there. In the winter, it's cold. In the summer, it's sweaty because it's just a shed, right? It's not had no acoustic treatment or environmental treatment. So in the winter, I've got big coats on, a little blower heater, and a but
I feel a song coming.
but I thought I'd written this piece of music called Awake that was quite long, quite a bit proggy.
Yeah, a bit of a concept.
Yeah,
album.
it was a bit Floydy meets Dire Straitsy kind of territory. But I had only written one song.
Bit of The Wall tucked in there.
Well, the thing is that it started with just the one piece of music, and so many people liked it when I played it on the live stream and commented on positively, and thousands watched it. I thought it feels like an opening track for an album. I haven't written the album yet. I better write the album. And I just went, I'm going to make a concept album. I'm going to do what the 13-year-old Tony always wanted to do, but was never in the right situation to be able to do. Either I was too young, or then I was too busy, or I didn't have the time, or I didn't have the concept of what the concept would be. So for me, I made the whole album in 2 months, February and March. I recorded everything as I wrote it. So Awake goes into the next song, which is a piece of music called The Clock Has Started. And so I wrote it, worked out all the parts, sang it, mixed it down, moved on. And the album has a kind of narrative arc, as an emotional narrative arc, right? So it's not like there's a story per se, but it feels like you're going on a journey. Because as I'm writing it, I'm going, where does this need to go next, right? I finished this 17 songs, and I haven't released the album because as I was making it, I realized without this being either with a major or having major promotion or an audience that already knows about it, it will just sit on the Spotify shelf and no one will listen to it. So as I was making it, I was designing the live show because I knew it had to be live. So for every song, there's a video. And I tried out the videos during the live streams by creating this weird, I've got a green screen in my shed. So I would create what looked like a stadium stage, but it's still me in the shed with a green screen no wider than this, standing there with my guitar, using kind of layering through Photoshop and Final Cut to create the elements to make it look like there's a big screen with a trussing around it and there's a drum kit over there and amps. And I put the videos on the screen behind me so that people could see it. And then afterwards I watch it back and I go, oh, yeah, that works. Or oh, I could change that. You know, I was actually road testing the live show before we were even live.
There's various themes in Awake. You say it hasn't got one overall story, but it goes off on various directions. Some scary ones as well.
Yeah, well, it's layered. You can enjoy the show and just go, like the costume changes, great guitar solos, well done, Tony, enjoyed that. Or you can be more emotionally connected with it. So the three main themes of the album were, the first one was, you know, what we were all going through in 20 and 21, right? It was just the craziest time. Nobody could have ever predicted what would be happening, and it was happening. So there was a lot of things that were going through my mind. There was lots of things me and my friends were talking about, but there's lots of things we were just experiencing. So some of that was really good, right? As in, I was staying with my mum who had dementia, and I was her carer, and I had nowhere else to be. It was like a snow day. Do you remember those snow days when you were a kid and you wake up and suddenly it's like February the whatever and a ton of snow's arrived overnight. You can't go to school, right? Can hardly open the front door, so you just stay at home and it's like I've won something, right? Because I don't have to, no one's going to tell me off for not being anywhere because they understand, right?
It was a bizarre
So there was
time.
a sense of that all I could do was make music and spend time with my mum, right? And that was a very beautiful thing, right? But then there were also aspects to what was happening that was very ominous and disturbing, right? You know, the not being able to go places. I mean, not being able to sing, right? Not being able to go to church or go to someone's funeral. These were like, this is really quite dark, right? This isn't normal, right? So there's
all
elements
these
of that.
feelings that that humankind was going
Yes,
through.
all of that. There's kind
locked
of
in your shed.
Yes.
This is coming through into Awake.
Yeah. Plus, dealing with my mum and wanting her to be a part of this because she's always been a part of my life. So there's some elements that address her and her dementia and me looking after her. And then I remember at one point the government told us if you're a creative, you should retrain.
You could be in tech.
That's
Yes.
right.
You could be a developer.
Yes.
What? That backfired. What a shit campaign.
Well,
Let's be honest.
But that was,
were
I
talking
think, for
about it.
every
We were talking
creative,
about
it's
that the other
like
day.
that was one of the most
What a slap in the face.
darkly depressing things I'd ever heard. So I look at my life. We've talked a lot about the highlights of it. By anyone's standards, I've had an amazing, successful life. I've done some incredible things. I've been some unbelievable places. I have no regrets. If it all
You're
finished
still,
tomorrow,
you're still a young man, Tony.
I am. That's true.
You know,
That's
but
true,
you know,
honestly.
you know,
But the point is, the 13-year-old Tony had these dreams of doing something, and they got a bit sidetracked by doing all these other things, which were great. So when we were told this, you got to retrain, there was a part of me thought, is that it then?
Yeah.
Do I
Yeah, I
never
bet.
get to do another gig? Do I never get to do the thing that I've spent my life doing? And that was really disturbing. So there's an element of me looking at my life through the show. There's one song in particular called Remember Me, which is basically 13-year-old Tony singing to me, saying, have you done what I promised I would do? And I thought, I haven't. So I better do it now. So Awake is partly that as well, right? So it works on many. But the strange thing is, what appeared to me to be a very personal journey is actually a really universal journey. Everyone who sees it relates to the dimension or a relative or a friend that is in a bad way that needs looking after or can understand that. Everyone can understand what we went through in the madness.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you think, whatever side of whatever argument there is, we all experienced it.
Yeah.
And finally, the personal journey. There's loads of things that we all wished we'd done and wanted to do. And maybe in our dark moments think, will I ever do that, right? Well, maybe we won't. But Awake is me going, right, I'm going to knuckle down now and try and push all on my own. I'm going to try and push this thing up the hill.
It's a roller-
Nathan and I-
It's a roller coaster of an album and a show, and I must say we've seen it at Camden Club
times, yeah.
and Bedford, and it's fantastic.
I don't think I'd ever twigged why it was called Awake.
No, I didn't.
No, I do.
Until I do.
Now
Yeah.
I know.
Well, and basically the first song is called Awake because I only have a few lines in the song, and the lines really are, you know, because if it all seems fake, then we're awake.
Yeah.
I think all of us have an inner compass as to what's happening around us, and we can tell some bullshit when we. Can I say the bullshit?
Yeah,
Of course
yeah.
you can.
Too late
It's
now,
on the
no.
We
internet.
swear on it all the time. don't we?
I think we all have an inner idea of when something is genuine or not, really. And this seems to be a time that we need to be awake to who we are, awake to love, right? I mean, the real message of the whole thing, and I talk about it in the show, is that love is the only tool in our toolbox that we can use to try and fix or heal anything in this world, right? You can't fix, you know, if you know, there's been a lot of fire recently. Something's burning. You can't put it out with more fire.
Yeah.
And you know, if there's a flood, you can't put it out by using a hose. There are only certain tools that will work, right? And in this situation, this human situation, love is the only thing that can have any impact at making a positive change. Because if we are angry or if we're confrontational, that eventually will just inflame more of what's going on. But it's hard, right? It's like the hardest thing. How do you impart a sense to people that to be more loving is a more positive way when they're hurting and they're upset and angry. So my message is be awake to. It's at the very end of the show. It flashes up. Be awake to love.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Exactly. Yeah, indeed.
So what's next for Tony?
Yeah,
What's
it's on the
Slash
road,
Awake?
isn't it?
So now Steve Harris
From Iron Maiden.
Go back to the beginning of
Yeah.
my career. I was sending him tracks as I was writing them. Because although we'd lost contact for a long time, we'd got back in touch with each other before the lockdown. And he doesn't live he's not in the UK very much. So we were talking on the phone all the time. And when we first reconnected, it was like 1977 all over again. It was bizarre.
Fantastic.
Because Steve is exactly the same, right? He there's a few things that he really is passionate about. Music, obviously, football,
West Ham.
right? And those passions have never changed. And the reason that you can see him playing with British Lion in between Iron Maiden dates is because he just wants to play, and he likes little clubs as well.
I went and saw him in British Lion.
Right.
He was at the Planet Rock thing in Porthcawl.
All right, yeah.
It was very good. He's still loving it, obviously.
Absolutely.
Very small venue to see somebody
Yeah,
from Iron Maiden.
mega.
And he's not really kind of caught up in the star thing, right? But he's very smart. He understands what Iron Maiden is, and he's pushed and guided, and he has a real passion. And when we talk, honestly, it feels like we've just gone down the pub and it's October 1977, right?
lovely.
And we haven't
It's
seen
great.
each other for a couple of days. But because of that, when I started writing the album, I would send the tracks to him, and he'd come back with comments, things like, he'd go, well, I think you can make the chorus a bit bigger in this one, go wilder with the orchestra, right? He was loving everything. It wasn't like, I don't like this one so much. And he's definitely the kind of person that would say that, right? He's very honest.
Yeah.
He wouldn't bullshit me just to be nice. He would either say nothing at all.
Yeah.
All right. But he was enjoying the music I was sending to him and just being really complimentary, but just being objective, right? Hearing it for the first time, I think you could double the length of that, or I love the guitar solo in that. Maybe you could do more of it, or whatever, right? So that was the whole album. I kept sending him songs, and he's been very supportive of it. He's been to see the show twice. He came once to the Camden Club, and I did it once to the Cart and Horses, and he came and saw it there. And then he said, I love what you're doing. Do you want to open for British Lion on our British? He said, I should have asked you before. I don't know why I didn't think of it, right? So I said, yes, of course.
So supporting Steve Harris after all these years.
We're going to be back on the stage, same stage for the first time since 1977, on the
Fantastic.
same night, right?
Amazing.
I have to rethink technically how I do it, and also the length of the show. I have to halve it, really. But I've done all of that. I've worked out how to do all of that. And
So that means people who haven't yet seen Awake can
Yes.
see it 'cause it's going around the country. Where's
Yeah.
it going to be?
well, we're going. We're starting at the.
And
Cart
you can see
Horses.
British Lion while you're at it.
Absolutely. I've seen them quite a few times over the last couple of years, and I love the band. And it's Steve's energy is just like, it's always, we won't go to 11, it's always on 10. It's always at max, right? Great songs, fantastic band, all great players. And so for me, the challenge is just going to be physical, as in depth of stage, in order to get my screen there and
Yes.
get the projector in place. And if some of the venues have a screen, it's just techie stuff. But I am so thrilled and happy to say that they have a spare bunk on the bus. So I'm travelling with the band.
Oh,
on
you've
the
got
bus.
to rock and roll.
When does
Yeah.
it kick off?
It kicks off on the 3rd of January at the Cart and Horses. All the Cart and Horses show, we're doing 3 of them, 2 at the beginning and 1 at the end. They've all sold out. Quite a few of the dates have sold out now. But we're going to be going as far as Aberdeen, north, and as far south as the Isle of Wight.
Wow.
And you go to Wales as well, haven't you?
And we're doing Wales, where we're going to Merthyr Tydfil.
There you
Oh,
go.
wow.
And then when that tour finishes, the following week, I start my own headline tour of the UK to really make the most of the momentum and the profile
Yeah.
of what I've just been doing. So I'm doing 4 shows in Wales, actually. I'm doing Pontardawe, just north
Yeah,
of Swansea.
by Swansea. Yeah.
I'm doing Cardigan, a place called Muldan. Doing Wyeside in Builth.
Built Wells,
Yes. And also Noe Dwyfor in
That one, yeah,
not that
exactly.
place.
The length and breadth
Pwllheli,
of
yes.
Wales in Pwllheli, yeah.
So I've got,
Great.
I think, I think it's 14 dates of that as well.
Amazing.
So-
Yeah, but one of them's not too far from here with the winner British Legion end of February.
Yes,
Is
in,
it?
in Woking.
Yeah, Stan Hetherington's booked that one for
We'll
Woking
be there
Music
for that
Club.
one. Of
Oh,
course.
good. Yes.
It's just down the road.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
Max.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you
Very
go.
cool.
Yeah.
It stands great. I reached out to him, and he loved the show, and
Oh, wow. We
And
know
he's been
Stan
really
very
supportive.
well
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it. Sorry, I didn't realise that was happening. That's
I
great.
found out earlier today.
what's really nice I found in putting this tour together for myself, which has been really hard work, is that there's a few pockets around the country where there are people who are just passionate about putting on music that they think other people will really like in little venues that are cool little venues, right? Village halls, working men's
social
clubs,
clubs,
social
yeah.
clubs.
Yeah.
And there's a database of people that trust their judgment to some degree.
Yeah.
Stan's
Definitely one of them.
Yeah, he's great.
Great stuff.
So when does the tour finish?
So the tour finishes on the 24th of Feb in St Albans, and then there's an outside chance I might. None of this is confirmed, but I might be going doing something at the beginning of March out of Miami. But the plan is to take it to the States next.
And you
So-
already trialled it there, if I remember rightly.
No, well, I was in New Orleans. I did. I was there as a songwriting mentor at the Cutting Edge conference, and played some of the songs for some of the conference members with no tech.
Yeah.
Right? They just gave me like a rolling screen LCD about this kind of size, no lights. Borrowed 2 guitars. Had none of my own equipment. And did a few songs for some of the delegates, and they loved it, right? And I was okay. That's a nice little test. But I've now got my American work visa for 3 years, starting the beginning of next year.
Oh, wow.
And so my plan is to eventually take it to Vegas.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
a
that, yeah.
Vegas show.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, why
I know,
not
It seems
indeed?
like the kind of show that worked really well in Vegas, as well, of course, as well.
In the meantime, my next major project is the single I'm releasing in November. So on November the 22nd, I've got a single coming out, which will tie us back to Meat Loaf.
Right. Yeah, I've heard this.
Yes.
It was it's a really well, I say topical. It's topical because of the anniversary.
Yeah, so this is nothing to do with the wake specifically, although I will probably keep this in the kind of the encore moment of wake to be able to play it. So in 2021, a friend of mine had been approached by Meat Loaf to produce his next album. And this friend had pitched one of my songs already, a song called We Are the Light, and Meat Loaf apparently liked it. So he said, maybe that you should do a lyric rewrite. So I'm looking at the lyrics, and I just suddenly write another song for Meat Loaf. I get inspired. And then I just had this brilliant idea that Meat Loaf's had this incredible career. I'm gonna write an album for him. The arrogant Tony, right? I'm gonna write an album for him, and I'm gonna make it about his life, because really, Meat Loaf is a theatrical. His whole background was musical theatre,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And he's quite famously quoted as saying that he can't sing a song until he understands who the character is, and when he's got that, then he can sing the song and give it everything, right? So I started researching him, reading all the articles I could find, the books, films, interviews, and this guy's done some amazing things, right? He was in the original Hair.
Yeah, I knew
Right?
that.
So I get to this point, and I suddenly realise he's telling this story about how he grew up in Dallas, and one day when he was about 16, he and his 2 mates were in his car, and they went down to this bowling alley called Mickey Mantle's. And as they arrived, the receptionist was crying. They said, "What's the matter?" She said, "They just shot the president. JFK's just been assassinated, right?" So they go outside and say, "Hey, everybody, the president's been shot."
Like
And they
he
go,
does,
"Oh, kids, get out of here." Right? So they get in their car and they think they'll take him to Parkland Memorial Hospital, because that's where they take the gunshot.
Yeah.
Right? So they get in the car, they get up onto the freeway, and as they're getting onto the freeway, this guy steps out and holds his hand up with a badge, and he says, "I'm Secret Service. The president's been shot. Get me to the hospital as fast as you can."
I thought for a minute you were going to say they were fingering them for the actual shooting.
No. But they drive like crazy. There's the kids and there's this Secret Service guy, and they get to the hospital, and they park the car, and the guy gets out and runs in, and they get out of the car, and then they just see the limousine there. They go over to look at it, and it's just got blood and roses in it. Right, a chilling moment. And so the Secret Service guy comes back, he says, "Kids, here's $100. Thanks for getting me here." And they went, "Oh, we can't take your money, sir." And he goes, "Well, you're going to take something." They went, "Give us $5." So he gives them $5, and they rip it into 3 bits so they can each keep a memory of the day. When they go to school, no one believes them, obviously. When he goes home, he tells his mum what happened. She doesn't believe him either. Yeah. And then the news comes on the TV, and there's a news report from Parkland Memorial Hospital, and there they are, standing right next to all the people being interviewed. So I wrote this song called Blood and Roses from his perspective. It's like him telling the story, right? And then, tragically, in 2022, he dies. I wrote 7 songs for the album, all about his life. So I kind of forgot about it for a while, and then I realized that this year is the 60th anniversary, marking the assassination of JFK on November the 22nd. So I thought, I'm going to put the single out, because only 2 people can sing this, either Meat Loaf, because it's his story, or me, because it's kind of my story of his story. And I got an amazing drummer called Tommy Harden in Nashville, who's a great friend of mine, who's played on most of the Awake album, actually. He played the drums, which got this amazing part he's played. And the rest I played in the shed, recorded it, mixed it.
Well, it's a great track, and you've got a great video for it as well. So
here's the other thing. The times have changed technologically in the last 2 years, right? So AI is everywhere. And
it splits people, doesn't it?
It split me at the beginning, right? I wasn't sure what to think about it. And then I'm trying to think, I have to make a video for this song. Meat Loaf's no longer with us. And I can't use just general footage of him, so he can't be in it. JFK's no longer with us, and also all of the footage of that day is copyright, and I can't use that. And I don't want to be in it because it's not about me. It's a bit silly for me to do a performance video. I mean, I could, but... So I thought, how can I do this? And I thought, I'll try AI. So I'd already started using this system. It's by a company called Kaiber, Kaiber, like 9 months ago, and couldn't get on with it. And then about 2 or 3 months ago, I got an email saying, we've upgraded our systems and come and try it out again. So I thought, I'll just give it a go and see what I can do. If I come up with a couple of interesting shots, that might be good. But to my astonishment, this program was so clever that I could just describe. Well, most of the video is prompts, right? Which is another word that has a new meaning in the English language, right? Writing the right prompt for Chat GPT is giving people work, right? Being great prompt writers. But anyway, if you imagine that you had someone who's a storyboard artist and you were telling them the story that you wanted the video to go. So you might say, shot 1, I want an overhead shot of a busy street with cars in it and just zoom in on a big crowd of people, right? So you just type that in.
Yeah, it does it.
And then you say, what style? So I put in, my prompt was Sin City 3D render, the style.
Yeah.
And it gives me this thing back and I go, well, that's not quite what I wanted, but it's brilliant. So I'm going to use it, right? Because it adds extra stuff, right?
Sort of feel to animated feel.
I used a couple of images as starter images and a bit of video, but essentially everything's just me telling it what I want it to do. A couple of times it didn't get it right, didn't use it. I rephrased the prompt. But I created every single shot, including the very end where Meat Loaf is shaking hands with JFK. That obviously never happened. Yeah. Where I created that image out of nothing and said, this is Meat Loaf shaking. And it's almost, I know it's a cartoon, but you know who it is, right? So I've sent it to a few people before the release, all of whom have gone, how did you do this?
Yeah, it's fantastically done.
Because if you don't know how I do it, it looks like it's like $60,000, $100,000 video, right?
Brilliant.
Needs must.
Yes.
Right? That's my story, my blinking life, right? Needs must. I can't afford it. No one else can help me. I have to learn how to do it myself.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic track and a great video to accompany it. And it's obviously, so it's out. It's going to be out for the anniversary of the assassination.
Yes, it comes out on November 22nd, which is a Wednesday.
From Dallas, Texas, The Flash, apparently official. President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
November 22nd, 1963. Who knew the world would change totally? Jimmy, me, and Billy in my Buick 58 could never drove off like crazy through the urban sprawl. We knew that they'd take him to Parkland Memorial. Out on Stemmons Freeway, some guy flashed his star and shouted, "Secret Service, stop! I need your car." We sped into the entrance, arrived in a cold sweat. The limousine was unattended. It was a sight that I'll never forget. There was blood and roses right in front of me. Such a sad and terrible tragedy. And in that moment, America lost her dream. The world stood still, held its breath, and wondered what it would mean. Mr. Secret Service offered us all a tip. We took $5, and into 3 we ripped, so each could keep a memory of this day we shared. 'Cause who would believe us that we were there? I told my mother what happened. She looked at me confused, but then on the TV she saw me on the news. There was blood and roses right in front of me. Such a sad, terrible tragedy. And in that moment, America lost her dream. The world stood still, held its breath, and wondered what it would mean. There was blood and roses right in front of me. Such a sad, terrible tragedy. And in that moment, America lost her dream. The world stood still, held its breath, and wondered what it would mean. Blood and roses right in front of me. Blood and roses for all the world to see. Blood and roses.
So I think
That
probably
concludes.
that's about it.
Yeah, that concludes the Tony Moore special. And
Thank
honestly,
you.
fascinating stories. Seriously,
you,
we
Nathan.
really appreciate you sharing them, and it's what a
Well,
journey.
you're also going to play a couple of tracks.
Yes.
for us.
Yes,
Of course.
absolutely. I've got a guitar and a keyboard, and
What are you gonna go for?
I think I'm not sure yet. I think maybe I'll play one of the tracks from Awake, a
Makes
song
sense.
called "Love We Need You Here" on the acoustic, and then I might play you a brand new song.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yes, a brand new song called "Love Gives Me a Reason."
Excellent.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tony,
Yeah.
for coming in, making this a really special episode of the podcast. Good luck with Awake. Not that you'll need it.
Thank you.
There's a dog outside. I
Well,
just heard who's echoing that.
Well, and I'm very, very lucky that my tour with Steve Harris and British Lion finishes the day. Well, the last night is the 24th of January, so I will be there on the stage for the Wigwam and Jamma Awards at the Bedford next
Yeah,
year.
comparing again at the Bedford.
Because
Yeah.
you guys did such a great job last year. And for the first year, the place was packed. The energy was amazing, and it was a beautiful night.
Oh, it's going to be another
forward to
great
it.
night. So, and thank you for comparing as well, Tony. So, Dino and Nathan, big round of applause for Tony. Thanks so much, Tony.
Great.
Thank you very much, guys. Hey there, it's been so long, and I just heard your favorite song come on the radio and made me miss you so. I wonder where you are right now, and if you think of me somehow and maybe miss me too. I'd like to think you do, but I had to let you go, and now you gotta know that love gives me a wish you understood. I want you back for good. And yes, I had to let you go, but now you gotta know love gives me a reason, gives me a purpose, and keeps me alive. And love gives me intention, creates a dimension where I can survive, survive. I see you every night that I close my eyes, but I know you're just a dream. Love gives me a reason, gives me a purpose, keeps me alive. And love gives me intention, creates a dimension where I can survive. Survive. Love gives me a reason, gives me a purpose, keeps me alive. And love gives me intention, creates a dimension where I can survive, survive. Hey there, it's been so long, and I just heard your favorite song come on the radio. We're standing at the crossroads of darkness and light, and no one knows which way to go. Is it left or right? And now we see we've been so blind to the truth all around. But when your voice cannot be heard, you've gotta make a loud sound. This may be our last chance. So love, we need you here. We need your guiding hand to help us understand. And love, remove the fear and bring us all back home. Don't leave us lost and alone. What once was sacred ground, it's now burnt and it's scarred. While we were held spellbound in the devil's backyard, this may be our last chance. So love, we need you here. We need your guiding hand to help us understand.